live on YouTube, live there, and we're recording.
I'm going live on TikTok. La la. Welcome to MATHursday. Trying something a little different today, just kind of going through some SAT. So if you have any questions or comments, or if you think you know the answer, pop it in the chat. We'll go over it. So this is one of the problems from one of the SAT practice one of the SAT practice tests. So yeah, if you think you know the answer, go ahead and pop it in the chat. Okay, so if you think you have an answer, all right, so I see B is there. Hi, Pancake Mix. It's been a while. So guys, we're trying something a little bit different for this MATHursday. We're just going to kind of work through some SAT practice problems. So this is from a released practice test. And so once you have an answer, pop it in the chat and we'll go through it. Oh, nice. You got an A in Algebra 2. That's awesome. Yay. Yeah. I think everybody kind of needed a break for the last bit of the last couple weeks. It was a doozy of a year. All right, I'm seeing lots and lots of B's. All right, so let's start getting into this. Oh, you got data science next year. Okay. That's going to be a lot of work on your calculator and spreadsheets and stuff like that. But that'll be fun. Okay, so we've got a lot of information in this problem, right? So we've got right triangles, PQR and STU are similar. So similar means that they are not exactly the same, right? They're the same shape, but they're different sizes. Now in a similar figure, the side lengths are going to be proportional and the angles are going to be congruent. So in this case, it also tells you P corresponds to S. So that means that angle P and angle S are congruent to each other, which also means that angle Q and T are congruent to each other. Okay, so angle Q is 18 degrees, which means that angle T is also 18 degrees. Now R and U we know are both 90 degrees, and we also know that all angles in a triangle are going to add up to 180. So if we do 90 plus 18, that's going to give us 102. No, what am I talking about? It's not going to be 102. 108. Woof. Okay. And then we do 180 minus 108. All right, and we get 72 degrees. So the answer is B. Okay, what you can also do is you can do 90 minus 18, and that's 72. Yep. Okay, so we didn't actually need to get a proportion set up because it wasn't asking about the side length. So if it was asking about the side lengths, yes, we would need to set up a proportion. But when you're just doing angle measurements, you don't have to set up a proportion because angle measurements in similar figures are always the same. Okay. Let's see. I do offer private sessions. So you can click in the links and everything and in my profile, and you can set up private sessions anytime, pretty much anytime. I have some boundaries. All right, let's see another one. Let's check out another one. Okay, sorry. Let's do this one. Ooh. Let's look at Nasir's storage bins. So again, this is problem number 7 from one of the SAT practice tests that's published on the College Board website. Okay, they have quite a few paper tests. I do geometry. Yep. So we focus primarily like pre-algebra through algebra 2 into pre-calc a little bit. So that includes geometry and algebra 1 and algebra 2 and trig. And so, with it being summer break, we usually don't have a lot of like specific tests and things coming up. So we spend a lot of time doing standardized test practice and stuff like that. But if you have a specific question, of course, you can pop that into the chat. I'm taking contemporary right now. So this is just from an SAT problem set, but we can get into anything you have a question about. And you can also, guys, if you want to set up one-on-one tutoring or anything like that, go ahead and click the link and do the stuff, and you can find where to book me for tutoring. Okay, so let's see. So once you get an answer for this, for one storage bin, pop it in the chat and let's see. see 10, I see 18. Only made it to college algebra. Well, that's okay. You can use college algebra to figure this out. So I see a 10, I see an 18, I see a 10. Okay, so remember we're trying to find it for one storage bin. So let's see. Okay, so he bought 9 storage bins that were each the same price. He used a coupon for this $63. Do you guys say coupon or coupon? I don't know. I always say coupon. But then sometimes people would like call me out on it. I don't know. Coupon sounds really weird to me. I don't know. I don't know if it's a Southern thing, one way or the other, or whatever. Anyway. Okay, so the cost for the entire purchase after using the coupon was $27. So that means that you had your purchase minus $63 is $27. So that means that my original purchase was $90. All right, now $90 for 9 bins would mean that each bin is $10. So $10 per bin. Yay! Okay. Let's see. All right, let's move on to another page. Ooh, let's do this one. So we have this equation on here, trying to figure out what a solution to the given equation is, because there's technically 2 solutions to this. There's technically 2. So what is one of the solutions? Good, seeing a lot of good stuff. A lot of different ways of solving this one. So there are technically 2 solutions to this equation. So that's why it says it's a solution, because only one of them is given. out of these things. So that's why it says a solution, not as the solution. Okay. Oh, seeing lots of B's. All right, good. So the answer to this one is, or a solution to this given equation is B30. Okay, so I saw lots of things that people were saying. You could square root the whole thing, right? So if you square rooted the whole thing on both sides, you would get x over 5 equals 6, okay? Or what you could also do is if you start out with the x squared over 25 equals 36, you can multiply both sides by 25, and you get that x squared equals 900, and then the square root of square root of 900 would be plus or minus 30, right? But remember, you're always choosing the best answer, right? And this says a solution, not the only solution, right? So it is just plus or minus 30, which in this case would mean that it is B, okay? So let's see. So with these problems, they always try to put some on here that trip you up. So if you chose D, D is there if you forget to do the square root, right? If you just did 25 times 36 and got 900, that's how you would get D. C is if you get the 900, but then instead of square rooting, you would divide by 450. Okay, so remember that in all these questions, they always try to put in some solutions that you might get if you make a silly error. The 6, I'm not really. Oh, you know what? I bet where they got the 6 from is if you just kind of ignored the 25 and just did square root of 36. I bet that's where they got that. But yeah, all right. So let's look at this one. This is a good one. Okay, sorry, I'm getting used to the setup with the iPad. Okay, so we have 3 more than 8 times a number x is equal to 83. So which of these equations could represent this situation? That is a good one. Seeing lots of D's. Good to see you too. Thank you. All right. Lots of D's. All right, so looking at this, we need to really pay attention to kind of the way that it's phrased, right? We need to pay attention to the way that it's phrased so we can figure out what it's going to, which one is going to work, right? Now this problem gives you like is equal to 83. So is equal to 83, that takes out B, right? That eliminates option B because it's not even equal to 83. It's equal to 83 plus 3, which is 86. That's not going to make sense, right? So 3 more than means that it's plus 3. So that right there is actually enough to lead us to the correct answer, which is D. Right? Now the more than, so that means that it's add. But it is important to know that you're saying 8 times a number x. Okay, so it's 3 added to 8 times the number x. It's not just being added to x. So that's what eliminates the 3 times x plus 8. And that's what leads us to the correct answer, which is D. Excellent. Okay, let's see. Let's pick another problem. You know, some of these I feel like people don't believe me that they are actually on the SAT, but they are actually on the SAT. So something like this. Oh, can't really see that. Okay, so looking at this one, this is a problem from the SAT. I think this is just a practice problem from a practice test, but you know, you can get released exams and things like that. But looking at these, right? I mean, people often, like a lot of times when I do these, people think that they're way too easy to be on the SAT, but the SAT really is primarily Algebra 1 and geometry content, right? So this is a PDF of an SAT exam, so here we go. Yeah, let's get some hearts in here. Hi, Lucas. All right, so let's look through here. So we've got a group of students voted on 5 after-school activities. The bar graph shows the number of students who voted for each of the 5 activities. How many students chose activity 3? So right here, we've got this labeled where we've got the number of students here and the activity that they chose here. So the students for activity 3, it's right here. So the number of students who chose activity 3 is just under 40. Right, if we kind of like continue that line over, it's just under 40. So the only answer that makes sense is B. Yay! Fellow Michigander, yay! All right, welcome. I'm sure you're missing it right now with that heat in Georgia. Woof! It's been pretty hot here too, actually. Okay. Ooh, let's do this one. We've got a function going on here. Okay, so this is still really just Algebra 1 content. Okay. So this one can be a little tricky if you're not quite sure about the function notation. But really, if you haven't seen the function notation, which is that f of x, you can just think of it as y. So go ahead and figure it out. Ooh, Desmos tricks. I need to dive into more Desmos, especially since they use it on the SAT now. That's like the calculator that they have, I think, through that Blue Book stuff. Yeah, so I'm hoping to be able to show some more Desmos stuff now that we've got the iPad all hooked up to be able to do this. This is much better than the trying to print out and show you guys a printed out copy. Oh man, Tyler, I agree 1,000%. Algebra 1, man, it is foundational for a reason, right? And Algebra 1 is where you start using all of the, just figuring out, right? Problem solving is such a big part of it too, especially as an engineer. All the more advanced stuff you can, there's software programming and formulas and things like that. But, for the basic problem solving is, yeah. Ava, I think that's what your name is. So this is a practice SAT test. So this is, 10th, 11th grade. But like we've been talking about how the SAT is, yes, it's written for like later high school, right? But this in particular would definitely be more in the Algebra 1 realm with this function notation. Okay, so I'm seeing some A's. Okay, so when you think you have an answer, you can put it in the chat, or if you have a question about it, put it in the chat, and we'll see if we can help you out with it. So Leanne, with the functions, so the only thing you want to do is you can think of f of x right here. Think of this as y. Okay, so if you just kind of replace the f of x with y, that might help you kind of get unstuck on that. Okay, all right, so we're thinking A. All right, that seems to be the consensus. You could definitely graph this, but you don't actually have to. You don't really have to, and I would say graphing it would probably make it a little more complicated. So what you're really looking at is, this is like an X and Y T-chart, right? It's just a basic T-chart that you've got. So like I was saying, if you replace the f of x with y, for all of these really, you would see, okay, so what you're looking for is these equations should match up with these values, okay? So when you look at this, you have 3 times x plus 29. So when x is 0, 3 times 0 plus 29, that equals 29. So that one works. 3 times 1, which is 3, plus 29 is 32. That one works. 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 29 is 35. So that one works. So the answer is A. Okay. So any of the others, like when you're working through a standardized test like this, there's sometimes where one strategy is to like solve the problem and then find the answer from your choices. The other strategy, or another major strategy, there's lots of different strategies, but another major strategy is to use the answer choices that you're given to find the right one. So using that kind of narrows it down, right? So for this one, I could write an equation based on those points, right? I could find the slope. I could plug it into point slope form, and I could do all of that and then just find that it's A. But it's actually a little more efficient for me to just use these and plug them in and see which one works. Okay, because on the SAT, on a timed test like this, it's all about being efficient, right? So that's why we as math teachers say, like, use your calculator, because it becomes, it's more efficient, right? Be mindful of your time. Okay, let's see. Yeah. Okay, let's see this one. Oh, did I only load up 2 pages? All right, let's get a new page on here, huh? Let's get some... All right, so speaking of graphs, why don't we go ahead and take a look at this one? Okay. So this question is just, what is an equation of the graph shown? Okay, so this is question 12 from this practice SAT. Don't forget to like and share and send those hearts. Got a lot of people in here. It's exciting. I see C, I see A. Ooh, seeing lots of B's, A's, and C's. Wow. Got a lot of different answers going on. Nobody for D? Can't interest anybody in a D? Maybe a better way to say that. So this is directly from an SAT test, guys. SAT exam, SAT. Okay, so this is a lot of the SAT is going to be like pre-algebra and algebra 1 concepts. Okay, so there's a lot of things on here that are really straightforward and things that, you know, the majority of high schoolers will know and will have seen so many times. All right, so let's get into this. So looking at this one, so I was talking earlier about strategy for, you know, either using the answers that you're given to like kind of plug in and see which one works, or you can just solve it and find your answer out of the choices. So this one, I'm just gonna solve and look at it out of my choices. So let's zoom in on this a little bit more so you guys can see. Okay, so we've got a y-intercept of -8. Okay, so we've got the y-intercept of -8, and then we need to find a slope. Okay, now the easiest one to see, well, I guess it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to go here to my x-intercept, which is -8 also. That color is kind of hard to choose, hard to see. Okay, so then from there, I need to have my slope. And for my slope, I need to pay attention to what each of these boxes are kind of worth, right? What the scale is. Because they're rectangles, but they are actually squares. So it's going, so -8 down, or I'm sorry, 0 down to -8. So this is a slope of -8. And from -8 to 0, this is a distance or a movement, right? The rise is -8, the run is 8. So that means that my slope is -8 over 8, which gives me a slope of -1. That kind of went off a little bit. Okay. So my equation is going to be -x minus 8, which is C. Answer C. Okay, so we know it's a negative slope because it's going down from left to right. Yay! Okay, so anybody that didn't get C, if you have a question, pop it in the chat. Let's talk about it. So the slope, let me see, Aisha, the slope is, it's the change in y over the change in x. So it's not the change in x over the change in y, it's the change in y over the change in x. Okay, so it's rise over run. Okay. There's a lot of different ways to go about this, right? Because you could also, like, you could pick a point or 2 or 3 and just plug those in and see which one works, right? But you have to be careful with that because you would need to plug in 2 points to see if it works, because some of these may actually pass through the same point, right? Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, because they all have the y-intercept of -8. So with this one, you could just pick 1 point and see which equation it works with. But if this were another problem and these didn't all have the same y-intercept, I would be very careful with that. I would like pick 2 points and plug them in and see if which one works for both of those. Okay, let's do another one. Ooh, this one might be, oh no, that one. Can you guys read that? Let me know if that's too small. All right. F. Oh, D, okay. Seeing lots of D. Seeing A. Okay. These are all in slope-intercept form, so what you really just need to look at is the slope and the y-intercept, and that's it. We've got somebody very adamant that it's B. Yeah, so slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, and these are confusing because they have flipped the order, right? So you have to be careful about that. And that's something that they'll do, or that teachers will do, to make sure that you understand that the number that's with the x variable is the slope, right? And that the number that doesn't have the variable with it is the y-intercept. Yeah, when I figure this one out, I'm not going to do any calculations. You don't have to do any of that work. Okay, so when we look at this, a line of best fit, or a linear model, is just, so a linear model is where we take all of this data and we are just going to kind of like place a line. It's usually called like the line of best fit. It's the same idea, it's the same concept. So generally it's kind of going like this, right? Close enough, right? Not perfect, but close enough. So this part up here is going to be my B value, right? So my y-intercept is going to be somewhere up here. Now I know that these are not written out as y equals mx plus b. They're kind of written out as y equals b plus mx, which is fine. That works too. Okay, so b is still my y-intercept. Now my y-intercept I know is up here. So it is not going to be a or b, because these both have a y-intercept of 0.9. Not right. So now I'm looking at C and D. So out of those two, I look at my slope. My slope is negative. This is a negative slope. So right there, without doing any calculations, my answer is D. Okay, so this is another one where, could I have gone through and actually like plugged these in and calculated an exact line of best fit? Sure, I could, but there's no reason to. They give you 4 options, right? Otherwise, line of best fit, I mean, there are calculations and like specific formulas that you can use to actually like find the line of best fit, right? Linear regression and things like that on your calculator. But it's fine. You don't need to do that, right? It's giving you those 4 options, see which one of those options works, and then move on, okay? Yay, still smarter than your 5th graders. Always a good goal. Okay, let's see. Ooh, let's do this one. So we've got if x over 8 equals 5, what is the value of 8 over x? Oh man, second grade. Oh, I couldn't do it. I like having multiple sections of classes. I see my kids, you know, for about an hour, hour and a half, 3 times a week. It's great. I definitely could not do lower school. Woof. Self-contained. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's what I'm here for. You gotta explain. You gotta know where the answer's coming from. Okay, so if x over 8 equals 5, so to solve this equation, I just want to get, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my value for x by multiplying by 8 on both sides. So x equals 40. So then I'm going to substitute that in up here, and 8 over 40 is 1/5. Okay, I know on the SAT, they usually have like different ways to type it in or write it out. Like you can write it as a decimal or you can write it as a fraction. Like regardless, 1/5 would be the correct answer. Okay, so 1/5. There you go. I mean, you could absolutely do a reciprocal, right? So the reciprocal would be if you've got, well, do that. Okay. If you've got x over 8 equals 5 over 1, right? You can write that out as, you could flip both of them. 8 over x equals 1 over 5. Totally. You could definitely work that out that way. Okay. I don't know, but for in my mind, this, I just kind of saw, but yeah, go for it. So this is not keep, change, flip. So keep, change, flip is if you are dividing fractions. So this would be more of a just kind of solving, and yeah, the reciprocal, more of like a proportion type of thing. Yeah, it'd be a proportion type of thing. Okay. That's, yeah, so keep, change, flip is for dividing fractions. Yep. Ew, streams where the person just shoots down the right answer without explanation. That's annoying. I'm having such a hard time just sitting here quietly and waiting for you guys to make your guesses. I'm so antsy to just like keep going and going and going and going. So, but we're trying something new. I'm trying to take a breath. Okay, should we do a system of equations? Let's do it. Okay. The next one is a system of equations. And I really like systems of equations. Yes, there we go. Okay. Now, systems of equations, there's so many different ways to solve it. So I'll show the way that I would do it, but I'm going to give you guys, I'm going to sit on my hands and let you guys sort it out first. So it's asking you, what is the value of y for this solution? Oh, you can't see the top equation? Okay, let me move it down a little bit then. There we go. Pretty good trick. Nope, there should just be one value for x and one value for y. Oh, why did that go blank? Why did the screen just go blank?
What happened?
I don't know. I don't know why I went blank. I wasn't doing anything. Did that computer go to sleep or something?
No, I think it might be the adapter.
I wasn't touching anything or anything. It just went boop, boop. I'm done. Is that the plug right in front of you?
Yeah, where's the plug?
Right in front of your eyes.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go.
There we go. Just monitor your iPad, Tyler, because it's not plugged in anymore.
Oh, okay. Alright. Okay, so I'm seeing 80. Sorry, guys, I had a little trouble with that. Okay, so let's get into how to solve this system of equations, right? And all it's really asking you for is the y value, but we still kind of have to solve the whole thing. So with this one in particular, I'm going to do the elimination method. There's lots of different ways to solve systems of equations, but I'm going to go with the elimination method because of that I have like positive 1y and positive 1y. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract these. So 24x minus 6x is, I'm going to write this down here, is 18x. Y minus y is 0y. And then 48 minus 72 is negative, what, 24? Is that what it is? Yeah. Okay, so we've got 18x equals negative 24. So I'm going to divide both sides by 18. Okay, so divided by 18. So that's going to give me negative 4/3. So my x value is negative 4/3. That's my x value that's going to make this true. So now I need to go in and I need to plug this in. And I'm going to plug that into the 6x plus y just because 6 is smaller than 24. That's my only reasoning. So 6 times negative 4 over 3 plus y equals 72. So 6 times negative 4/3 is negative 8. So negative 8 plus y equals 72. So that means that y equals 80. Woohoo! Okay, so our solution for this would be negative 4/3 and 80, and all it's asking for is just the value of y. Okay. All right, let's do a couple more. Okay. All right, so this equation describes the relationship. Sorry. Oh my gosh. Stop it. Okay. This equation describes the relationship between the number of birds, B, and the number of reptiles, R, that can be cared for at a pet care business on a given day. If the business cares for 16 reptiles on a given day, how many birds can it care for on this day? So this is, all of this so far that we've done today has been Algebra 1 or lower. But these are all coming from the SAT. So keep that in mind that the SAT, the vast majority of SAT content is pre-algebra and Algebra 1 content. So there are some things that go into Algebra 2 and trig and things like that. But not always, right? So a lot of the math that's on the SAT is, it can be intimidating, especially, I don't know, like I always like to tell the story. Like I remember when I was, I had taken 3 years of calculus and I was getting ready to take my GRE, and I went back and I was studying for it, and I went, I'd taken 3 years of calculus, and I go, what? How do I find the area of a triangle? Right? It was just these weird little things that you just kind of forgot, like because you had been doing such advanced math, like I just forgot about some of the basics, right? So you want to make sure that when you're studying for the SAT and the ACT, like you don't always, I caution students against like overcomplicating things, right? Not every single problem is going to be super complicated on that, right? So logarithms, I've seen a couple of questions popping up on logarithms, and here's my one tip for logarithms, and I'm just going to kind of write this down here, kind of separate. So, and I learned this from a colleague of mine. So if I have a to the power of x equals b, okay. The log loves the base, but it hates the raised case. So it loves the base. So that means that I'm going to have log base a, but it hates the raised case, which is the exponent. So it's going to bring in that b, and it's going to get that exponent as far away from me as possible. So that's my big tip, is the log loves the base, but it hates the raised case. Okay. All right, hold on, guys. I gotta do the little puzzle thing. There we go. Okay. Remembering how to multiply fractions, you just go, oh my God, how do I do this, right? And it's that panic that sets in. So that's my biggest takeaway for logs, is if you can remember this right here and those properties, like when you're the property of multiplication and addition and all of that, then you're pretty much set for most logs that you're going to see. All right, so let's get some answers for these reptiles and birds. Okay, so one person wrote down A, which is 0. Oh, 2 people with A, 0. Okay, Floofy, you say 0 again, too. Okay, so once you guys think you have the answer for this, okay, go ahead and pop it into the chat and we'll go over it in just a minute. Okay, so we've got these two variables going on. We've got the birds and the reptiles, okay, that can be cared for at a pet care business. Now, I'm gonna say that this is probably like the number of hours they can spend with patients, like overall, right? Like there's 80 hours and you spend 2.5 hours with birds and 5 hours with reptiles, something along those lines. So if I care for 16 reptiles, which means that I'm looking at this equation when R is 16. So 2.5b plus 5 times 16 equals 80. Well, 5 times 16 is 80. So 2.5b can't add anything to 80 to make it 80, so b has to be 0. So that's going to be A. Ta-da! All right, let's do one more. One more. Let's see. Let's pick. Da, 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 da. Ooh, let's do this one. All right, we got some transversals here. Okay, so we've got in the figure, lines M and N are parallel. If x equals 6k plus 13 and y equals 8k minus 29, what is the value of z? Woof! There's a lot of, you got to do this and this and this and this. Oh, this is so much nicer than differential equations. That's why I teach this. But then when you're teaching all of this, you do start to miss kind of the more advanced maths sometimes. So Floofy, you can't use a protractor because of this. Oh, whoops. Uh-oh. What did I do? Oh, no. Okay, wait. Hold on, guys. Sorry. I gotta move this. Oh, God. Oh, geez. What have I done? Oh, no. Hold on. I'm messing up my board. Okay, there. So you can't use a protractor because, let's see. Can't use a protractor because of this. What? Oh my gosh, what is happening? There we go. Because of this right here. Because the figure's not drawn to scale, so you can't use a protractor on that. Okay, so what you can use is what you know about these transversals and the parallel lines and things like that. Okay, so we got a C41. I got a couple of 41s. Okay, so when we're talking about these, so when we've got these parallel lines, right? So line N, oh my God, what is happening? Something's going on with my pen. I don't know what happened. I think I'm just zoomed weird or something. Okay. So M and N are parallel. Okay, so when you've got parallel lines, we've got a couple things going on. So this little intersection is going to be identical to this little intersection. Okay. So that means that this angle here is also x degrees, and this angle here is also y degrees. Okay. Now, when we have an intersection like this, what's also true is, well, anytime you have any intersection, is that these two angles are vertical angles. They're going to be congruent to each other. And these two angles are congruent to each other. Okay, and also, when you have something like that, which is a linear pair, these two angles will add up to 180. So there's a lot going on here. Right? So x is going to equal y, and z plus x is going to equal 180, but also because x equals y and z plus x equals 180, then z plus y is also going to equal 180. So with this, with all of these three equations, we can start figuring it out, what we've got, right? So we've got, let's see, I'm going to erase these. Okay. So if x is 6k plus 13 and y is 8k minus 29, okay, they're equal to each other. So 6k plus 13 equals 8k minus 29. So I'm going to add 29 to both sides. That's going to give me 42 equals 2k. So then 21 equals k. Now 21 is k. I don't know if z is k. I don't know that. But what I do know is that if k is 21, then x and y, so x is going to be 6 times 21 plus 13. So 6 times 21 plus 13 is 139. And what I do know is that z plus x equals 180. So 180 minus 39, or minus 139, is 41, which gives me z. So z is 41. Okay, but now you guys see why B was on there. Right? So the answer choice of 21 was on there because that's what you get if you solve for K. Right? So they're a little tricky. They're a little tricky trickster. Okay. Not sure where they got the 3 and the 139. Maybe if you multiply, I don't know. Oh, I guess 139 is because that's the measure of the angles. I'm not sure where they got 3 though. I don't know. Okay. All right, guys. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me on these. And we'll keep doing these. I'll see you guys next Thursday. Bye, Floofy. See you next week.